So there's two things that I want to talk about in this video. The first one is the actual news story. The second part of this that I want to talk about is cancel culture in general and my thoughts on it, because they might be slightly different than what people might have come to expect from me. So, Walmart apologizes after tweet calls GOP Senator Howley sore loser. So, Senator Howley has stated that he is going to object to the election results, which triggers a debate in the House and Senate. I'm not going to, because YouTube doesn't let me, talk about whether or not this objection is legitimate, but the point is he said that he's going to do it. And in response to that, Walmart tweeted out that he was a sore loser. So let's read this. Walmart is blaming a short-lived tweet calling GOP Senator Josh Howley a hashtag sore loser on a mistake by an employee who meant to add the comment to a personal account rather than the retailer's corporate Twitter page. Well, that's there's a lot of things that are kind of interesting about this. The first thing is the guy obviously has Walmart's Twitter page in the same browser as his, or the same computer at least, as his personal account, which raises a whole number of other questions, because that basically means that his personal account and Walmart's Twitter account are linked, and he might be the victim of phishing or something, and then Walmart's like, this just raises a lot of other questions. So let's see here. Let's just continue the story. Howley is among a number of Republican lawmakers who have backed President Trump's so far unproven claims of widespread electoral fraud in the 2020 election. They always have to put that in here. Roughly a dozen Trump supporters in the House, led by Mo Brooks of Alabama, have said they will challenge the slate of electors from 6 battleground states where Biden narrowly edged out Trump. Okay, so let's go through here. So I don't think I can really read this anymore. Let me see, because my Twitter account got banned. It's not actually because of hate speech. It's because my Twitter account got hacked and it was posting a bunch of spam. So here we go. We have the Walmart Twitter account. So Josh Howley says millions of voters concerned about election integrity deserve to be heard. I will object on January 6th on their behalf. Once again, this is not like a fringe opinion. It's something like, I've seen polls between 60 and 90% of Republicans think that there was election irregularities. And once again, the fact that they're like in full on, we can't investigate it, we can't even talk about it, regardless of how you feel about it, that's kind of a bit weird, isn't it?
Let's bring in Trump economic advisor and FreedomWorks economist Steve.
I hate these fucking autoplays. They're super annoying. Because like sometimes you'll switch to a different tab and you'll just hear this really loud thing going off in the background. It's really lame. Howley pushed back, saying, "Thanks at Walmart for your insulting condescension. Now that you've insulted 75 million Americans, will you at least apologize for using slave labor? Or perhaps you'd like to apologize for the pathetic wages you pay your workers as you drive mom and pop shops out of business." Ooh, body slam. That's some good populist economics there. I really hate how the GOP and a lot of conservative parties in general are just pro big business. That, like, and I'm not necessarily even against large companies, but they have to serve the interest of the nation and the state rather than serve the vagaries of the international, or I guess you could say transnational elites. But a Walmart spokesperson apologized to Howley and told Fox Business that the tweet was made in error. "We have removed the post and have no intention of commenting on the subject of certifying the Electoral College." So, what are we going to say about this? I say no benefit of the doubt, because they never give us the benefit of the doubt. If this had have been, I mean, there are no conservative-leaning companies. I guess maybe like In-N-Out Burger, if they commented on one of Richard Dawkins' posts and called him a filthy atheist, and then they said like an employee did that, would they give us the benefit of the doubt? No. So I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think this was deliberate. Well, I don't actually think that, but I'm going to treat it as if it's deliberate, because they would treat it as deliberate and the same if it was in our situation. So they aren't like entitled to any of my sympathy. So this brings us to the topic of cancel culture in general. Because almost after this started, a hashtag boycott Walmart, I think it was something to the effect of don't buy at Walmart, started up, where a lot of conservatives were saying they're not going to buy from Walmart anymore. They're going to try avoiding going to Walmart. And immediately a bunch of midwits were like, claims to be against cancel culture, says they won't buy from a company they disagree with. And this is like, so what a midwit is it's someone who has slightly above average IQ and is fairly well educated, or I guess fairly well read. So they're aware of some more sophisticated arguments, I guess, and they kind of understand them at a very basic level, but they can't really see the broader context. Probably a really good example is that was basically the entire New Atheist movement was composed of midwits. Like the whole, oh, you don't believe in Thor, we just don't believe in one God more. And they like ignore that a monotheistic creator deity, you can make an argument for metaphysical necessity. We won't get into that, but the point is it is a fundamentally different thing. They're the kind of like, I effing love science people, and the people who are like, God doesn't exist, but the multiverse like is really possible. But they can't understand that the multiverse doesn't explain the origin of the universe. I'm just giving this as, because I think this is a really good example of a movement run by midwits. So in this case, and I'm sorry if this sounds like that feeling when too big-brained, that's kind of their response to this. And they're like, this is right-wing cancel culture. But is it really? So cancel culture is basically where people on the left use the threat of force or just mass campaigns to try to get people deplatformed, or just destroy any business or institution that they personally disagree with. So if someone tweets all lives matter, there'll be a campaign to get them fired. They might try to get them charged with a crime. They might Me Too them. They'll try to get them kicked off of their platform. That's generally speaking the approach they have. It's also a case where they'll pressure the advertisers of a particular program to drop it. Basically, the idea is responding to their ideological opponents by trying to remove them, either through an implicit or explicit use of force, and by trying to indirectly shut them down through government or through attacking their platform. Now, is this an example of cancel culture? I'm going to say no, it's not like similar at all. So in their midwit minds, they're saying, okay, threatening in a lot of cases to like use violence if a company doesn't do something. So like threatening YouTube or threatening violence or trying to get someone removed from YouTube is the same as personally deciding you don't want to support something that you disagree with. And I don't really see how that's vaguely similar. I mean, I guess in their minds, not purchasing, and this I guess is part of woke capitalism, like not purchasing something because you don't like it, because it's left wing, is the same thing as trying to use violence or the force of law or destroy people's lives as a way of getting rid of mean thoughts that you don't like. I don't really see how that's even similar. I guess you could say it's both a way of striking at your ideological opponents, but one is not doing something and the other is actively doing something. Like, I don't really remember anyone complaining when people on the left were like, we don't want to shop at Chick-fil-A. They went out and a lot of right-wing people bought stuff from Chick-fil-A as a way to show their support for the company. But I don't think anyone said, like, they have to buy from Chick-fil-A. And if they choose not to because they disagree with the company, that means that they're trying to cancel Chick-fil-A. I mean, you could make the argument, and they won't because they don't understand these things, that Walmart is right to do this, and that the conservatives who are complaining about this are in the wrong. And the particular merit of this issue is is morally wrong. So you could say, if they were willing to make an argument, which they probably aren't, that it's okay to shut down racists because they're really bad, but it's not okay to shut down people who are trying to push narratives that you disagree with. Right-wing narratives. It's not okay to shut down left-wing narratives, but it's okay to shut down right-wing narratives. And this kind of comes to my opinion. To a large extent, I actually kind of agree fundamentally with a lot of aspects of cancel culture. As I've said in the past, I support free speech largely as a tactical or strategic thing, not as some kind of inherent unalienable right. If we're going to live in a society like this, then, and freedom of speech theoretically exists, then I'm going to use whatever aspects of the system exist to push my point of view. And part of that is free speech, because my side isn't in a position of power. So I'm not in a position of power to censor and shut down people I disagree with. So I'm going to support I'm going to support unequivocally freedom of speech, as it's a way to ensure that my side is heard. And the question is this hypocritical? Is this hypocritical? Is this cynical? Well, I guess maybe you could argue it's cynical, but is this hypocritical? I'd argue no, because my understanding of Catholic doctrine is that you have the freedom to do the right thing. You have the freedom to do good. You don't have the freedom to do evil. So you have the freedom to promote the traditional family. You don't have freedom to try to destroy the traditional family. You have the freedom to donate to charity. You don't have the freedom to steal from charity. You have the freedom to protect your family if someone breaks down your door. You don't have the freedom to go and break down someone else's door. So it's a moral issue. It's not really any kind of right issue, I guess you could say. Where if I think people are promoting things that are dangerous to society and to the nation, I'm fine with them getting shut down, so long as it's in what I would consider to be a natural law, morally consistent context. So I guess what I'm saying is, on a fundamental level, I don't really disagree with the sentiment behind it. If I was in a position of power, I'd probably purge a lot of these people. Particularly, I'd shut down a lot of newspapers and stuff like that. I'd probably purge a lot of academia and stuff like that. I'm just going to be honest, because fundamentally, I think most people other than center-right conservatives don't actually believe in freedom of speech or democracy. It's just a tool for gaining power. And once they've gained power, the goal is kind of a nihilistic looting of the state to try to maintain the looting as long as possible. So, I don't know, maybe that's kind of a weird opinion. Maybe that's not really what people expect from me. So, like I said, I'm going to be against censorship on YouTube so long as it's not censorship in the way that I think it should be. And I think because the moral law of the universe as dictated by nature and nature's God, and by other important things such as the preservation of the nation, is morally more important than some sort of abstract idea to freedom of speech. Now, as a practical principle, and because there is a real danger of, at least in people's private lives, of government censorship, of excessive government power. Like, I personally, even if I was in power, I wouldn't support like the NSA or the Patriot Act or stuff like that. And I'd really only pursue people who were publicly agitating for things. Generally speaking, if people want to talk about something in their own homes or to a friend or something, I don't really think that that's any of my business. But if they're publicly trying to advocate something, or they're trying to use force through terrorism or protesting or lawsuits or something like that, then yes, I think they should be put down and stopped. And I think a lot of right-wing regimes, the reason why they collapsed in part was they didn't go far enough with dealing with subversives. And that's something I can, to a certain extent, respect China for, is that they don't play around. People who are a threat to the established system and to how they view the world, with kind of a China-centric worldview. So I'd say the current Chinese government has kind of revised the idea of China as the middle kingdom, as the Chinese as the master race, and as everything is secondary to the advancement of the Chinese state. And anyone who kind of gets in the way of that has to be purged and has to be shut down. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, other than the fact that China is an atheistic, evil regime that practices horrific, just is horrific on many levels, aside from its repression of Christianity, the way it treats its own people, and just in general, it's a very wicked and evil regime. China isn't based, I know this is getting off topic, China's not based, it's just that the Chinese people are naturally really conservative. So as a matter of basic pragmatism, the communist regime has to adopt things like positions on social issues that we would consider based, but it's not, I think, out of any moral commitment to them. It's just there because it's necessary to appease the Chinese public. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Maybe that's what you expected. Maybe it's not what you expected. I hope you at least found it interesting and gave you some food for thought.